from the creators of... Remember when that was exciting to hear, especially if the games in question were genre-defining hits like Halo and Mass Effect? I think we've grown wary of that marketing tagline, and who wouldn't after nearly a decade of misfires from acclaimed studios? Remember Mass Effect Andromeda? Remember Anthem? Remember Dead Rising 4? Remember Wolfenstein Youngblood? Remember Back 4 Blood? Remember Dragon Age Veilguard? Remember Marathon? That one's not out yet, but you get my point. And here's the thing, are any of the original creators still working at these studios? Is it false advertising if they aren't? To be honest though, even if the original creators are helming a new project at a different studio, that doesn't guarantee it will be another classic. But despite my jaded nature, I was still looking forward to the Callisto Protocol after seeing the reveal trailer. I mean, it's from the creators of Dead Space, and I do love me some Dead Space. You got Dead Space 1, classic. Dead Space 2, classic. Dead Space 3, not a classic, but also not terrible. So my hope for the Callisto Protocol was that it would reach the heights of the best games in the Dead Space series, and it didn't. It got mixed reviews on Metacritic. Angry Joe gave it a 3 out of 10, SkillUp hated it, Yahtzee put it on its worst of the year list, and it sold poorly. Looking back at the pre-release coverage, the red flags were there. Turns out only a handful of devs from the original Dead Space worked on it, including the somewhat contentious Glenn Schofield, who by the way left Striking Distance Studios after the game bombed. And for some reason, I swear I'm not making this up, it was originally set in the PUBG universe. I don't have a witty remark for that. What the fuck was that about? So I avoided the Callisto Protocol at launch, and only recently picked up the complete edition on sale to satisfy my morbid curiosity. Is a game that looks this good really a 3 out of 10? Let's get into it. In the Callisto Protocol, you play as Jacob Lee, who looks like he's about to audition for the next Alien film. Incidentally, he's a space trucker. He and his friend must deliver a shipment of goods to Callisto, the prison moon orbiting Jupiter. On the way, their ship is attacked by a terrorist group called the Outer Way, and they crash land on Callisto. His friend dies, and both Jacob and the surviving terrorists are arrested and thrown into Black Iron Prison. But before he can settle into the incarcerated life, the prison is overrun by mutants. Now Jacob and a prisoner named Elias must work together to reach the prison's hangar bay and escape.
Oh God, no! Move! No, we're not infected!
Lethal force has been authorized. Area secured. Moving to medical center.
So allow me to tip my hand here. I don't hate the Callisto Protocol. Yep, just drag me out to the village square and throw tomatoes at my stupid face. But before you do that, hear me out first. I didn't say it's a good game. I only said I don't hate it. Those are two different statements. I think part of that has to do with my initial expectations. Going off the reviews, I expected a complete disaster. And what I got instead was a sporadically enjoyable gore fest that has some terrible stuff in it. I won't pull your leg. But the main question I had during my playthrough was, why did people hate this game? Well, let's examine the possible reasons. 1. Is it the story? You know what? Maybe. And not because it's badly written, but because it's just fine. And after all the hype, people didn't want fine. They wanted something unique like Dead Space, which had a good story. It was mysterious, tense, had plenty of genuine what the fuck moments in it, and good characters. Isaac Clarke, specifically in Dead Space 2, is a likable protagonist. He starts the game scared and confused, but his transformation into a badass is entirely believable, and by the end he's dropping one-liners like a proper action hero.
Isaac, no! This is a really bad idea.
Well, stick around. I'm full of bad ideas.
Jacob Lee, on the other hand, is a wet noodle. He spends half the game grunting and the other half asking questions.
Hey! What are you doing? What the fuck was that? The hell are those things? Elias, you there? Did you know it was her? Is this who we're looking for? Well, how the hell am I supposed to get there? What happened to Ferris? Why can't I remember how I got here? What?
Joshua Duhamel does a fine job with the material, but there's only so much you can do when the material is this bland. I don't feel bad about spoiling his character arc, because if you've played a horror game before, you'll be able to predict every beat as soon as you arrive at Black Iron Prison. Of course he has a connection to the prison. Of course he's unknowingly part of a massive conspiracy. Of course he's going insane. Hey, just like Isaac Clarke. Of course he eventually teams up with Danny, the terrorist who attacked his ship, and finds out she isn't evil. You get the idea. Again, it isn't bad, but it's frustrating to see all these good performances wasted on a generic script like this. I expected better from the writer of Saw Rebirth. 2. Is it the atmosphere? Well, I hope not, because it's easily the best part. I ultimately didn't mind the game's linear structure because it's well paced and every location is amazingly atmospheric and packed with such incredible attention to detail. Okay, but I could have done without all these narrow passages and vents to squeeze through. Seriously, AAA games industry, stop doing this shit. Anyway, a high-security prison located on one of Jupiter's desolate moons is a fantastic setting for a horror game, and the Callisto Protocol quickly and effectively establishes that Black Iron Prison is just as cold and nightmarish as the titular moon's surface. This is a weird detail to fixate on, but I also like how violent and unstable the machinery is. The way the screen subtly shakes when you get near the industrial fans and gears, which look like they could break off at any moment, makes the prison feel almost like a living, unstable entity. The Callisto Protocol isn't anywhere near as scary as Dead Space, but it does have some unnerving parts, like this great section in the middle where you're stumbling through a snowstorm, with only the light of a distant tower to guide you. The high point in the game for me was Chapter 6, Below. You're separated from Danny and need to make your way through the bowels of the prison, where thousands of old, decaying mutants roam. It was the first time in the game that I felt any tension, as these mutants are sensitive to sound and stealth is pretty much necessary. It isn't the most original concept, but the evocative sound design and grimy scenery succeed in sinking you deep into the seedy underbelly. It's effective. The music's creepy too. See, I don't know. I think it deserves a couple more stars on the 10-point scale for the atmosphere alone. Even if the rest of the game was complete dogshit, I wouldn't score it any lower than a 4. Speak of the devil. 3. Is it the game? It's the gameplay. I don't think it's completely awful, but it doesn't combine its two warring halves all that well. The one half is a fun, but slightly neutered version of Dead Space's gameplay loop. You shoot off limbs, curb stomp enemies, there's a token upgrade system, and you can pick up and throw objects with the GRP. It's just the kinesis module, okay? But here's the twist. You can also pick up enemies with it, and I mean, it's extremely ridiculous and silly, but I don't give a shit. It's fun, and the arenas give you plenty of ways to get creative with it. Alright, now watch me hold this guy in front of a moving grinder. It's worth investing your points into the GRP, because it gets pretty overpowered by the end, even letting you splatter enemies into nearby walls. So again, it's discount Dead Space, but it's enjoyable. Anyway, the other half of the gameplay is a repetitive, awkward, horribly designed brawler. I'm amazed this combat made it past testing because I cannot stress enough how bad it is. I mean, you can probably tell just by looking at it. Like, where do I even start? Weirdly enough, my criticisms of Hellblade 2's combat mostly apply here, though the one difference is that the Callisto Protocol expects you to fight several enemies at once. And oh boy, is this combat not designed for fighting more than one enemy. I mean, hell, it barely works with one. It becomes more tolerable once you upgrade the baton, but man, I could see why so many people dropped this game before the 3-hour mark. If it hadn't been for the enjoyable gunplay and terrific atmosphere, I probably would have done the same. Enemies have way too much health and the fights just drag on and on and on, and it's not even that it's difficult, it's just boring. You hit and dodge and hit and dodge, and it doesn't evolve beyond that. You also have a heavy attack and a block, but why the hell would you block? Dodging is super easy since you just need to move left or right before an attack hits, and on top of that, you take damage when you block. And the heavy attack is way too sluggish to use, so I ended up spamming the light attack the whole game. No surprise, this gets old very quickly. So the question of whether or not I'd recommend the game to you depends entirely on your tolerance level. If you greatly value atmosphere and immersion and can put up with the game's flaws, then I'd say pick it up on a deep sale and blast through it in a couple of evenings. However, if you demand better than tolerable gameplay and want a more interesting story, allow me to direct your attention to the Evil Within series. Or just go play the Dead Space series again. I guess I should briefly mention the Final Transmission DLC, which is the game's true ending. Hang on, the true ending was chopped off and sold as DLC? Where have I heard that before? Overall, I thought it was decent. Up until the last 5 minutes. If you're still wondering whether the Callisto Protocol will get a sequel, the ending of the DLC pretty much guarantees that will never happen, as if the disappointing sales weren't enough. Cover your eyes and close your ears if you don't want spoilers, but it ends with every terrible DM's favorite trick. Rock falls, everyone dies. No, really.
Jacob, you did it. And now, your fight is done.
Oh, and did I mention the entire DLC is just a hallucination?
Thanks for the $15, idiot.
It sucks because it starts off somewhat promising. There's more of a focus on the psychological horror elements, which were almost non-existent in the base game. And the kinetic hammer is fun to use and pulps everything in 2 hits, except these horrifying mutant robots. But I just can't recommend something that ends with "it was all a dream" in 2025. It's old hat and everybody hates this twist, so I wish people would stop using it. All of this is to say that you should not buy the DLC. Just stare at a wall after you beat the game and imagine a better ending in your head, like one where Jacob and the mutants start singing the hamster dance. I don't know. Now I'm gonna go play some more Into the Breach. Okay, bye!
The pulping was super awesome. I like saying the word pulping. It's super awesome. Bits and body parts go flying and it's freaking cool.